Hello, I'm Noah of the channel TravellingHalo, and this is not a Halo podcast, where my friends and I try, and likely fail, to talk about anything but Halo. Thank you for listening in. It is my honor and privilege to be joined by my friends today, all of us, artists and or musicians, connected, of course, by our shared love of Halo. I will let them introduce themselves in alphabetical order.
Howdy, I'm Alyx.
I am Wernissage.
And Neo is late. So without further ado, this is not a Halo podcast. So on Wernissage's suggestion, we are going to talk about the Halo TV show, and more generally the topic of adaptations, which I'm very excited to talk about because I have a hell of a lot to say about that. So let's start with the actual television show itself and what we just recently learned. Mind you, we are recording on January 30th.
Close.
January 30th, which is a Sunday. This Sunday during the football game, we are supposed to, and by the way, I say the football game because I don't know anything about football. So I think it's the Rose Bowl? Maybe? Probably asking the wrong two people.
Yeah, football to me is something entirely different. So
yeah, exactly. I'm not even talking to someone who refers to American football as football. But during the game today, there is supposed to be a drop for a like the actual trailer for the show, and we're supposed to know the date that the show's releasing. However, we do not know that at this time. So we're going to be really relevant when we finally get heard.
Nice.
Down the road. But they did just release a blog post talking about the nature of the non-canonicity of Halo the TV series, or Halo the series, I guess it's called, which follows a continuity referred to as the Silver Timeline. The Silver Timeline being an alternate Halo timeline, which is the first time that's happened in 20 years of Halo history.
I mean, there was the that one episode from Halo Legends with Spartan Elite.
Maybe that's canon in the Silver Timeline.
Oh yeah, maybe that's that's the beginning of it
with the dinosaur and everything.
Yeah, there it is.
Spartan 1337. That, you know what? There's a lot of opportunity to draw in shit like that. I mean, a lot of Halo Legends is like slightly abreast of canon.
Yeah.
There are other things. There are pieces of Halo media over the years that have been slightly abreast of canon, but 343 has gone out of their way to try to make it all fit.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna I have a pretty strong idea of what I think is happening, but I am going to play devil's advocate for a moment, or at least bring up what I've seen people say about it, which is to say that I see a lot of people who don't understand, especially the people who didn't for a long time understand that this wouldn't be canon, saying, well, why are they making these choices, to have this thing be this way when in reality in the canon it's just been established as being this or whatever. Like, for instance, a human captor of the Covenant being raised by the Covenant. It's kind of a strange story beat to pull out for the sake of the lore. But on that note, I think that, in regards to that, I should say, I think that it's pretty obvious that they want to. It's been pretty obvious that they've wanted to stretch out and be able to have the creative freedom, to make different choices like that serve the watching experience of the show, which is, this is what happens with adaptations, like Harry Potter being adapted from a book to a movie, Lord of the Rings being adapted into a movie. I mean, that supposedly did quite a good job. I didn't read the book, but I would have never read the book. I don't read books that big. I can't read that well.
No.
But what do you, I mean, so my question to you guys is what do you think, what is this going to be like? I mean, do you think it's going to be good, or do you think it suffers from this? choice?
Well, I have some opinions or thoughts
I
on
love
that.
opinions.
Yeah. No, because my theory is that if they were to like create a series that's set in the same universe as the games, I think people would just be more annoyed and just like be more pissed off about it, because there's no way they're gonna write a Halo story set in the past that's not gonna, somehow clash with the established lore.
Remember
I just feel,
Reach.
yeah. Wait, what did you say?
It's just to remember Reach and how it
Yeah,
sort of,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
That's a great
yeah.
example.
Like even Reach messed things up, So I think doing something different, but inspired by the stories we've seen in the Halo universe, I think that's definitely the right way to go. Because I mean, just look at like Game of Thrones. If you don't look at the last two seasons, in my opinion, I think that was a success. Like they adapted books and picked out stuff that they think worked, like in a TV series. So I'm just excited to see, like, yeah, Blue Team isn't gonna be in this season maybe, but maybe they're in season 2, and maybe we get to meet Kurt sometime later down the line, and we get to see a new rendition of him.
My
Sometimes
boy.
I think as fanboys and fangirls, I think we can even appreciate this more, because we can, like, oh, it's that character. Kind of like when you see a new adaptation of like Spider-Man, like, oh, that's Harry Osborn, from the comics, and I was like, oh, that's Kurt from the Halo games, and then I mean the Halo books. I think so. Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I think it's the right thing to do.
I think
What about you,
probably
Alex?
what I'm most concerned about is it spinning off into like pure fan fiction or overwriting what the original characters or universe was supposed to be. Right now, what I'm thinking about are the recent Hitman movies, of all things, where they basically turn Agent 47 into like a
Oh, I've seen those.
James
Yeah,
Bond
actually.
or a
I
John
know what you're
Wick
talking
I
or
haven't
something
even
like
seen
that. Instead of like a proper professional assassin or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they just turned him into an action movie star with actual personal objectives and stuff, which is entirely not who Agent 47 is.
That's a really good
Just
point.
Straight,
I
straight up an
hadn't even
employee.
thought about
That's
those.
it.
Yeah, I
That's
hadn't
the
even thought
same.
about
He's
those.
just straight up an employee of the ICA or whatever.
Yeah. I saw, like, I think the most recent one of the more recent Hitman movies, and here's the thing. I thought they were good movies, and yet I completely agree. Like, it seemed very removed from the core canon of those games, But the production itself, standing on its own, I thought was kind of, it was quite good. I actually was pretty entertained. It was like your average A minus, or I'm referring to like AAA, B plus. But I guess in movies, we refer to it as being different. Like blockbuster movies being the top, B movies being B movies, something in between. It was your typical that kind of budget of movie, like entertaining, but not. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I think the Halo series, Halo the series, I think it could potentially, as a production standing on its own 2 feet, benefit from the fact that it is not tied to existing Halo lore. I think it will be made better by that. But, of course, certain things in Halo, like basically what I'm thinking of is my best example of this is Halo 5, right? Halo 5 makes some strange choices with the plot, but elements like pulling out book characters and prominently featuring things that are only known to people who are who follow the games the lore very closely outside of the games, pulling that all into a game made that production suffer on its own 2 feet. Somebody playing Halo 5 dry without having ever experienced anything else Halo related might be somewhat entertained, but also be sitting there completely unaware of what's going on.
What's the mantle,
Yeah, what is the mantle?
for example?
Yeah, among
Yeah.
many other things, like why is this old lady obsessed with Mr. Green Boy? But like, I think that the TV series is like the exact antithetical opposite of Halo 5. It's completely removing its. Well, we'll see if it is, because the thing that would make it opposite would be that it's really really good for some reason. But what we do know about it is that it does the opposite of what Halo 5 does in terms of lore pulling, and it is established that it is completely a different thing. Like they talked in the blog about, you might see new ship designs, and those new ship designs are actually canon designs, but aspects about how the ship behaves, or maybe even the name of it, aren't going to be what they are in canon. And this is true also of characters. Like Master Chief is working with a Spartan team called Silver Team in the show, made up of Spartan 2s who are canon. They're canon names for Spartans, they say. But even their armor and also the actual makeup of their characters is not going to be necessarily consistent with how they would be portrayed in core canon, So, which is an interesting concept. And this is basically this concept is what they were trying to tackle by putting that blog post out a couple days ago. That and they also say, like, for instance, the returning characters, like the Keyes family, like Miranda and Jacob and Halsey, and these characters are supposed to be like, they say they may not be representative of how you've seen them in the canon, because this thing is not following the same events of the books and the games, So this is what they say they're going for, and that's fine. That is what it is, But what I'm interested in is, like, why did they make the choice to do that? Why would that be a benefit? Why would that be the route they go? So, if you remember, like only I think a year ago, only the show was going to premiere on Showtime, and all of a sudden they announced it would be on Paramount. I feel like it went through a major production shift at that point.
Oh, okay.
And because they up to that point they had not said this isn't going to be canon. They would drop little hints about what the story would be exploring, and people would complain, well, that's not going to fit the canon, but they wouldn't go out and say it. Well, I feel like that's because they didn't know. I feel like I feel like at that time they weren't even sure that that's the route they were going. Now for them to be so public about that, I think is them getting ahead of the curve in terms of people coming out and screaming about it.
Yeah, that's a good theory.
But point being, why would you choose to make a show not canon? I feel like that's because when Frank O'Connor and Kiki Wolfkill, franchise directors at Halo, come in and they meet up with Paramount, who has their own writing team, they get together, and Paramount people want certain things to happen in the show, and after a while, Frank and Kiki start to go, okay, that works, and then for them on their end, they say, okay, I guess we can fit it in this way. And then Paramount keeps asking for other things, and it gets further and further apart, and eventually they come to the point that we're at now where they say, like, okay, we need to just make this not canon on our end, for the sake of the production, so that in the creative process, in the collaborative process with people who don't care about the Halo lore, the Paramount writers, that they would they can still have a synergy as a team and a production and go places that are interesting for the sake of watching on television, but not have to justify it in the canon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But this concept though is foreign only to Halo. This happens in other things all the time. Like, Alyx, you've seen She-Ra, right?
She-Ra?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you shared a couple gifs from She-Ra, so I was assuming that you had. It's a cartoon that was made, like, I think came out like in 2019, and it's based on the He-Man cartoon from the 60s.
Okay.
And which is also itself based on comics. And He-Man is like Norse mythology based. And She-Ra is an adaptation of that. It's an adaptation of the same thematic elements, and but it's not the same universe necessarily. It takes character names and appearances as they might appear in like the He-Man continuity, but adapts those things, which I feel like this TV series is something. It's like Halo's opportunity to do that, play with the same thematic material.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's a smart decision because if they were to make a Halo series with the games canon, I feel like they would bring in the gamers like us, but they wouldn't really bring in new fans because like how do you balance that? Like how do you balance making a TV show with like stuff that we know but no one else knows? Like how do you balance newcomers and experts in Halo lore? So I think just like resetting the lore makes everyone start at the same place, really, like when it comes to the knowledge of the Halo universe. And I think I just think like that's the best way you can, even though I understand some people don't like that, I think it's the smartest thing for them if they wanted to succeed, because they can't just, I don't think as gamers it's enough. I think they want to bring in new people, because I feel like the Witcher series, that brought in like a lot of new fans, right? To the Witcher series.
My aunt was watching The Witcher. She has no interest in video games. She had no idea it was even a video game adaptation.
Yeah, that's probably what they want to do with the series. So I'm totally fine with. I just want more people to know what Halo is, because like I have a lot of friends, like most of my friends. Yeah, I think all of my friends, like real life friends, like here, like no one plays Halo. Barely. Some play Call of Duty with me. No one plays Halo. I think a lot of them will actually give Halo a chance if it's a TV series, because it's not the same thing as playing a video game.
Interesting that you bring up Call of Duty, because now I'm thinking about the Modern Warfare reboot, the Black Ops reboot,
yes,
and even like whatever Vanguard's trying to do, I guess, which might or might not be a continuation of World War II.
Just World War II reboot.
Reboots
like the fucking
World War II with red dot sights.
Yeah.
Just bringing on new people and reusing the same ideas, but going in a different direction so that new people can come aboard.
Yeah,
and sort of like discover their own way back into the original media pieces.
Yeah, because in that way you get new fans, but you also interest old fans. Like,
right.
Like new fans can like, oh, who's this Captain Price? Well, us old fans like, oh, it's Captain Price from Call of Duty 4. So yeah, you're right. It's like the best way to bring in new fans as well as old fans, I think.
Same as like a band, for instance, like Avenged Sevenfold, who changes their sound basically every album, and people just latch on to whatever
Interesting
that sound
you bring
is.
up like the continuity for a musical group, because that's a thing.
Because usually they set up like their own established sound, but then eventually they'll go off into another direction or explore new things, which I guess in a creative business anybody would want to do eventually.
There is kind of lore with like musicians sometimes, over long over careers. There's like there's a lore established of like their evolution of their sound. That's I never thought of that.
Oh, don't even get me started on Metallica. It's a 40-year story.
That's true.
When you bring up music lore, I just think of like the Beatles, like all their. I'm not even that into that, but like aren't there like a bunch of theories?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, theories and like even characters or something. I don't know.
Well, it's true, like the character of Paul McCartney and the character of George Harrison and etc.
Yeah, basically.
Ringo is the biggest piece of fan fiction in the Beatles lore, but a character kept around only for fan enjoyment. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and so Well, I thought I had something intelligent to say. I'm pretty sure I do.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't think so.
they like so in that right, bringing on people to the Halo lore, who are otherwise disinterested. Like one of the events that they refer to specifically for the TV show continuity, the Silver Timeline. I kind of hate that name, by the way, but anyway, like I just wish they'd say
Everything's got to be
non-canon.
everything's got to be like an MCU or something.
Yeah,
You know, this silver timeline. I don't care. Just like tell me it's not canon.
yeah,
I wonder
that's
if it's
all
gonna
I
try
need.
and squeeze in MCU humor as well.
Oh no.
Oh no, you. Oh,
Chief-
no,
Chief
you just
cracking jokes.
oh no,
Did I just jinx it?
Oh no.
Did I just jinx it?
you
Oh,
might have.
Honestly,
I hadn't even thought
honestly,
of that.
when you say that, maybe a hot topic, hot opinion, but I feel like Halo Infinite kind of was a little MCU at times, with even
Especially with the
Chief.
weapon.
Oh God, you
Yeah,
guys are
like-
making me want to die.
Yeah, like these skimmers, blah blah, and he's like, so that's what we're calling them now.
Flying
yeah.
spider monkeys.
Skimmers it is.
That was a
I don't
little
know,
bit
I
of
thought
a-
it was a bit.
That was a bit of a they fly now moment for Halo.
Yeah, they fly now moment.
Uh-huh. Which, Star Wars fucking did the same MCU thing. God damn it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you
we'll see.
guys. Oh, no.
I just hope this like if they want to go that way, I just hope they. Well, I don't want that, but I just want them to have like a consistent tone. Like,
Well,
that's the issue
they
with a
kind
lot
of-
of stuff today.
One thing they've said that gives me hope that that's not the direction they're going is they want this to be Halo's Game of Thrones,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
which
As
could
long
be
as
cool.
they don't pull a final season.
Yeah, that could also be cringy in its own
Yeah.
way, though. So just, like Master
Yeah,
Chief
I
taking
know-
his suit off and having a lot of sex would be maybe a little weird. So,
oh yeah. Oh hell, here's for hoping.
Oh,
No, but
yeah.
it's funny you bring that up because I don't want to sound like a genius, but when we didn't know much about this series, I like my I was gonna say, like my biggest wish was to have like a Game of Thrones style Halo series, like kind of, and in that way I mean like, in Game of Thrones, except for the last season, like no one is a good guy, and no one is.
I haven't watched it, but
entirely
I
bad.
understand the concept with Game of Thrones.
Yeah. No, like so the concept with the Game of Thrones is like, yeah, you got these families, but no, like some people are kind of bad.
Everyone's
and
a
some people
gray
are kind of
character.
good. Yeah, everyone's really gray. Like some people, like with this family seems really nice, but they're kind of messed up in a way. While this evil family is kind of nice in a way, so you
Yeah.
get to see like stuff from both sides of the war, like why people are doing what they're doing, and there's no one is a good guy really. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I hope to see from this series, like the units, see how messed up they are. Maybe they do some weird experiments on Sanghili. I don't know. I just want something.
I agree
like
with
that.
you. That would be incredible. I'd love to explore those kinds of things. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think it would be a really. I actually do think this could be a cool thing for Halo. I'm a little bit in the woods alone on that one amongst my fellow cohorts. Like my girlfriend, like a big part of how she enjoys things like Halo is continuity and canon and stuff, and the intrigue is how it relates to other things. But I mean, I enjoy things that way too, but I also appreciate great art that's standalone and the vision of a creative person, just whatever that might be. I think that's always fun.
Yeah.
And I think that if this show is good, if it's good, it will be even better because it is a more full representation of what those creative people were wanting, rather than being something sort of tied down by arbitrary, previously established factoids. One of the things that I was going to bring up earlier about this show is that, like, they said, for instance, the discovery of Installation 04 in this show may no longer be some kind of an accident, as it has been made out to be, in the core canon. Like, they didn't say exactly what, but the way Installation 04 was found is they're going to build it up to be something that was more purposeful and based on evidence and built up to, and yeah, again, not something that was happened across by a random slip space jump, so to speak, which is interesting. That, why would you have to change that? Well, I could think of a lot of reasons why you would have to change something like that. Like if you wanted to have a certain character develop in a certain way or have a certain emotional backstory thing of some kind or whatever. I don't know if they're going to show us the discovery of Installation 04 in the show or if they will already have been discovered. Like I don't know. But let's say they want to have one of the episodes in the show be the moment where they find the ring. Or like that's the finale of season 1. Well, if you wanted to build up to that, you would have to say, well, it's not a random thing anymore because, then you write an entire season of show that leads up to that moment that is built off of effort by characters working towards something. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not an accident, right? And so it makes for a more interesting TV show that way. And so you have to change things like that.
Yeah, it'd kind of boring. Like, they just, like, do stuff for an entire season. Then the last minute of the last episode's like, oh, we stumbled across this thing. It's called Halo.
Yeah,
sick.
No one would care.
Cue season 2. Yeah,
like... but in the games, it's a narrative. It's a piece of narrative intrigue because you know that the fall of Reach happened, and that's all interesting in its own right. And in a last ditch effort, the ship, randomly slipped away. And that is the ending for Halo Reach, and that's interesting for that story being told. And for Combat Evolved, they don't explain that it's random. They just show up, and the interesting things are the things that happen once they're there. But there doesn't need to be an explanation for how they got there. Well, for a TV show that wants to, cover that, it's more interesting to make some kind of other, intrigue out of that. So, I mean, I understand the choice. I get it. I think we all can relate to that. Recontextualizing things for the sake of making it feel right. Like even when you're making a video and writing a script, good Lord, my voice. And you're writing a script and you need to make a narrative about whatever it is you're going after. Like Wernissage, when you do helmet redesigns, you have to frame it. You can't just be like, I looked at the helmet and I made it simpler. Yeah. Do you like it?
I think
like and subscribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing people don't really think about, like, until you've done something like that. Because when I always watched videos growing up, I just thought like, oh, people just know what they're gonna say. Well, surprise! Like, at least 70% of what my script says is just like, oh, this sounds good to say. Like, it's not like I lie about stuff. It's just like, how do I say this so it sounds interesting? I'm not gonna like, maybe I made all the helmets more classic. I'm not gonna outright say like, this helmet, I made it more classic on every single helmet. Like, you gotta figure out something
it's
unique to say. Like, yeah.
You want to explain yourself, but you also have to keep in mind that you're an entertainer, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's entertainment.
You're
like, you gotta
your ideas to an audience, and they have to be interested in that if you want them to keep coming back.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's not even about the English language. It's just the frequencies. Like, it has to sound a little bit interesting and unique and different. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you do a good job with that, where you'll redesign something and you say something poignant about the way that it affected the overall silhouette or whatever, and I'm like, yeah.
Oh, that's something I say a lot.
That's that's nice. It's very fluffy, nice. Language-wise.
Yeah. I try that. I mean, the problem is it's not my first language, so sometimes I just have to like look up synonyms. But I feel like I'm better at
thesaurus is a writer's best friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I mean, that is why we have stuff like English theory, music theory, art theory, color theory, all that sort of stuff, because there are certain things that people just intrinsically enjoy for whatever reason. Some psychological reason. We're attracted to certain ideas or executions of ideas. That sort of thing.
I think it's enjoyment based on associations. So things that and hence why it's difficult to draw those associations when English isn't your first language, for instance, because you don't have the cultural buildup of association from other things that said things a certain way, or especially with color theory. I think the only reason, I mean, there's certain evolutionary reasons why like for instance, red is the color of blood, and so you respond to red a certain way. But I think there's interactions between colors that are a little bit cultural too.
Yeah.
But you
Definitely.
wouldn't have those same associations if you came from a different culture. And there are actually concrete examples of that, where certain cultures see, they use color in ways that for another for a separate culture from them is like very off put by it, because it's really intense, but for them it's relaxing.
Yeah.
And I don't have those examples to call up, but it's a thing, and you guys know. And music is the same way. To my understanding, in like I think Japan or China, like sometimes like major can be sad, but very overtly.
Okay.
Music
Yeah.
that to us is very upbeat can sound very down-putting for them.
What's that one song I'm thinking of? The Dame Dame song? Whatever
Yeah.
that song is. Like, it's actually
Yeah.
really sad, but I think it's written in a major key.
Oh man, what's it about?
Yeah. I can almost hear it, but not really.
What's it about?
It was like a meme, right? Like
Yeah.
like a year ago, 2 years ago.
It was from Yakuza.
Oh,
okay, yeah.
okay.
You might have heard it actually.
I mean,
We can look it up.
I've heard of songs that are about death, and but they sound incredibly upbeat and happy, and it's like
Let me see if I can find some
it's kind of
beats on it real
horrifying
quick.
for us, but
Yeah.
but in that culture, contextually, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But-
because in Western music, if we want like a major chord to feel sad, we gotta have like a lonely piano, like a
Yeah.
bunch of reverb and like
Yeah,
some specific tone, some specific keys
exactly.
to make it.
It's not we can't just have something major key. The feel of the song is upbeat. We have to recontextualize that major
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
some way to make it sad, and that's not the same thing for them apparently, because there are certain cultures that's true for, and I just can't remember. I just don't have any specific examples.
Did you find it?
Yeah, just real quick. The song was written
good.
in G major, and it's about getting left behind in a relationship. Like somebody moving
Okay.
on, but you're like stuck behind.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord, that's like
Really
quite the opposite
interesting.
of Kenny G's "The Key of G" album, where a lot of that was a play on words, but also some of his music is in the key of G, and it's all love songs, and it's all it's like an optimistic love song type of a thing. That's like the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Just
the key of,
playing on ideas, and yeah.
yeah, the key of G major is also a historically, at least in Europe, is a holy key. It's the key of God. So
Oh, really?
a lot of
Oh.
secular music is in G major.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we have stuff like what's it called? Titanus, Tritonus.
Tritones.
The
Tritones.
satanic
Tritones.
tritones. Yeah. I just know it in Swedish. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and so they
Yeah.
don't want that. There was a tradition in conventional harmony, especially in the church, of don't write tritones into your music. There can never be a tritone interval, or you're evoking the devil. And
Yeah.
that is so funny.
There it is.
Yep.
Nice.
And that's funny to me because it's the reason that to me it pulls open the covers very plainly on how religion actually functioned for those people, because their whole worldview was just their religious point of view, because the science wasn't what it is now, and so to justify things happening in the world around you, it's like religion was the way you did that.
Yeah.
And so if it sounds bad, if you hear tritone and you're like, ugh, it's dissonant, we have to justify that, and God is your lens through
why
which you
is it
justify
bad?
things. Of course,
Yeah.
of course that's going to be, and music. It's just a testament to how powerful music is for people. That it moves them so much that when their worldview is entirely through God, all of a sudden they see everything. Music is going to be one of the most powerful representations of God and the devil and stuff, if that's your worldview, because music is that powerful for us, seemingly biologically. It's very interesting. I love that stuff. We studied that we studied the entire history of music as music majors in college, and so we had 2 years worth of, so 6 quarters worth of music history class that we had to do, and we started at the beginning. We went all the way up to like the 80s, but we started at like the very earliest record of music in the 500s, I guess, earliest known music, and that was arduous at times. There's a lot of really boring aspects to music history, and yet if you think about it the right way, a lot of it is incredibly intriguing because it's all these human lives that it's a slow progression, but all over the world, it was a very interesting thing to learn about, and I didn't retain a lot of it, honestly, but because I was falling asleep most of the time. But it was an amazing thing to. There were amazing revelations. Things are connected, and things originated from places that you would not have any idea about otherwise. Again, I wish I had some better specific examples. Again, I didn't retain a lot of it.
Oh wow!
But a huge part of the way that the way that music is today, especially like classical style music. Well, really any music comes out of the music as it was written for the sake of the church. And for a long time, almost all music was relegated to people who were church-faring, or like you were not allowed to make music if you didn't believe in God, for the longest time. And of course that meant that people are people. So somebody somewhere was also making secular music. And that, and so it's interesting to watch secular music and how different it is from, what's the word for it? Holy music?
God music.
Yeah, sure. God music. It's interesting to see that interplay, because one is way different from the other, but they're made at the same time. And anyway, it influences pretty drastically how we hear music today, culturally.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, I'm guessing the secular music you're referring to, like that kind of, I guess in a way, evolved into like the pop or rock sound,
Mm-hmm.
But then they kind of merged together, and now there's like Christian rock.
Yeah.
So that makes you think.
Funny how that works, and that's interesting. That's interesting because people, as new generations are always going to be more progressive than the previous generation. And so the way that that's expressed in music is super interesting to look at, because in 1900, the idea of Christian rock would people playing Christian rock would be regarded as unholy. Although today, somebody performing Christian rock is like the holiest, and the only difference there is that they're a more progressive generation, and so they hear things differently now, than the people back then would have heard them. Tritones are acceptable now. I'm sure you can find tritones in Christian rock. And it's like, why does that work? Well, it's because we've heard jazz at this point, and so since we've heard jazz, it legitimizes certain harmonies as being not dissonant anymore. Plus, it's
can I just say, how did we go from the Halo TV series into Christian rock? Like,
look, man, there's nothing holier than Halo music.
That's true. Oh, it just goes back. It's a circle.
Mm-hmm. Halo is everything.
Epic. Yeah, Halo is everything.
Halo is God.
This is not a Halo podcast, though.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
It's a Christian podcast.
Although, yeah. If I may, I thought of something about the TV series. If we go back a bit, what do you guys feel about like animated, like CGI characters, and like even some environments, or like practical environments that what do you guys feel about like practical? I mean, like, Star Wars practical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can tell it's not really an alien, but it feels real because it's actually there, even though it looks a bit like stale.
Yeah.
Or do you prefer the very
Bit
expressive
Muppet-like?
CGI stuff? Yeah, exactly, like a Muppet. Like, do you prefer a Muppet or do you prefer the CGI that looks, I mean, good, but it
I
looks
think
fake?
that it's completely dependent on the franchise. I think.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that. I'll give my thoughts really quick, and I'd like to hear what Alex has to say. I think that Star Wars started the first time you saw Star Wars, it had puppets, and so your idea of how those characters move and function is rooted in the way puppets look, and so it's more convincing when the Mandalorian uses puppets than when it uses CGI, because it feels more Star Wars. Whereas Halo is a video game first. And so the way that you know an elite to move is one based on the way a computer-generated character moves, and all the different nuances that go into that and the look of that. So I think that Halo looks better and more convincing when the aliens are actually CGI. But I watched a fan film that came out not very long ago, and it wasn't very long. And it was like an ODST dropping onto a beach away from his squad.
I remember that.
It was during the battle of the Delta Halo fight in Halo 2. And it was just a great short film. It was like 5 minutes long. But he gets attacked by a jackal sniper. And the jackal was practical. And I like gasped audibly when I found that out, because when I first watched it, it was so good that I just assumed it was CGI. But then I told the filmmaker how great it was, and he actually responded to me in the comments. I'll send the link to this short film so you guys can see it if you haven't. But it blew my mind, because he's like, no, that was practical. And I went back and I was like, holy shit, that jackal's a puppet. They built a jackal. It was so cool. And it looked so good. Awesome. So, I mean, Halo, I think, can do that. And we've seen screenshots from the Halo TV show that show profits that I think they look practical.
I was gonna say, like, that's what brought it up for me, like, because it's just a screenshot, but they look really good to me, even though they're practical.
I thought so too.
So I mean, my answer is probably like boring and maybe not realistic, but I feel like the best way to do this, because in a way, if they were to have all the aliens be CGI, I honestly wish they made the Spartans a bit CGI as well, because CGI, like the Spartan, like the undersuits and all, like,
I definitely have something to say about that specifically. Yeah, I kind of want to know what Alex, what do you have to say?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think probably what I'm most concerned about is the preservation of the environments that you would see in Halo, because obviously a lot of it would be rather difficult to pull off, but as much as possible, I would love for them to figure out some way to at least make it look like it's on a stage or something. Because there's a lot of, like I said, environments in Halo, like on the Ark,
High
where
Charity?
you got High Charity, the massive Forerunner City, or not Forerunner City, the Covenant City. You've got on Installation 04, where obviously you have the ring going up in the background.
Sure.
But you also have this diversity environments, like you've got the jungles, you've got the Pacific Northwest, which that isn't too hard to pull off, but there's something.
Not for 343. They just walk out the back door and start filming. And
No, there's something about the Halo Infinite and Combat Evolved Pacific Northwest that's very specific, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It pulls off a specific vibe.
Northwest.
Pacific Northwest.
I did it. I'm sorry.
I can't believe a Swede just made that joke for the first time in the world.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. I agree.
Sorry.
I think there are things in Halo that are tied very directly to relatable things that are relatable because they're tangible in our actual world, but they're recontextualized to be something alien.
And so I would want them to use as many real locations as possible, but I guess process them in a way that makes them look familiar to those who have seen the games already.
I would agree. I would also want that, because otherwise, if it looks like they're standing on a soundstage with a green screen behind them the whole show, it's going to just be a drag. It's not going to be amazing to look at all. You're just going to be completely unimpressed the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, they're supposed to go to High Charity a lot in this show, it looks like. And so we're going to see the interiors of High Charity a lot. Are they going to build purple walls? I would want them to.
Oh, yeah.
There is the obvious example of The Mandalorian, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Where they have all all of these diverse environments, and they're managing to pull off a lot of it with like practical structures and character
Yeah,
designs
because they have
and
this.
stuff.
What's it called? They have
volume.
What
The
is
volume.
that? Oh, is that what it's called?
They call it the
the
volume.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
just
going to
hope
assume
they
that
use
Halo's actually going to be that technology. I
I
almost
hope that.
guarantee it. I'm sure that they watched The Mandalorian in 2019 and they're like, okay, it's time to make this show. Now we have the means or whatever. Like I'm sure they saw that and they were like, okay, this is now we do it.
Yeah,
Because that technology, the reason it works though is like Alex said, it's because of the interplay between a virtual screen and actual practical things. There's both happening in The Mandalorian, and the way those seamlessly blend together makes it really convincing.
yeah, because that's like what I'm hoping for, like a perfect blend of CGI and practical. Even though that's easy to say, maybe not as easy to pull off, but I just hope they kind of, like, even with the characters, like I'd prefer them to create all the aliens practically, like the elites and the prophets and all that. But then I kind of want them to CGI some of it, like kind of like how Marvel does. Like even though I don't always think it's necessary, like they put CGI on like a Spider-Man suit, even though I don't always think they should. That's kind of a smart way to do it. Like you have the raw footage, but then it kind of looks awkward in some pieces. Maybe you can like tell that it's just made of clay, so they can just like CGI that part. I think that's the best way, but I don't know. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. So.
They're going to be using practical Spartan suits. They said they built them custom.
Yeah.
Halo in live action
practical.
has always kind of done a balance between building new suits and reusing suits from previous productions. Like in Forward Unto Dawn, at the end when you see Fred and Kelly, they're using the suits that were used in the Halo Reach trailer, Deliver Hope, where the previous Noble Six delivers the bomb to the carrier and Cat gets blown up by a Banshee bomb. They actually used those suits and repainted them, and those are the Spartan suits you see at the end of Forward Unto Dawn because of budgetary reasons. And so they always have, because it's quite expensive to build a Spartan suit.
Ja. Jag kan hämta en till.
You see that?
Yeah. Is his house haunted?
That doesn't look normal. Oh. I thought that was like
girlfriend.
a window or something. I thought that was like a curtain on a window or something.
I assumed that was a window.
I thought somebody was trying to break in.
I know. I thought that was a window, and I was like, "What is happening?"
Oh, kind of makes sense.
I was very scared.
I can see that.
Oh, that's hilarious. So here's my thing about live action Halo that's never been done before. So speaking of the practical Spartan suits, I think to represent a Spartan the way that they get talked about in the books and things, you need to do a fully CGI Spartan, which is kind of a hot take, but I think Spartans should be just CGI because they are supposed to move with such fluidity and weightlessness, and in a suit you just have all this jiggle and armor pieces. Like, cosplayers know all about this, and there's a reason they make their suits out of foam, because it's lighter and it follows your body movements more closely, versus doing something more sturdy that might have a better surface finish, because it'll be heavier and it does not look right. It's amazing how quickly. And with Spider-Man, for instance, if you do a practical suit, how do you get rid of like creases and things where your body like bends? In reality, that you have things crease, but the way that it is in your head, Spider-Man doesn't have creases in his suit. It's all smooth everywhere. So the undersuits, in my opinion, at the very least, I feel like you should have bright green undersuits on the physical Spartan suits, and then those are just green screened, and
That's a good
made
point.
to be CGI undersuits. Because if you look at the games, the undersuits are stretching in the weirdest ways, and the textures are getting stretched out all over the place to make things work. You don't have actual creasing happening, which is almost impossible to avoid in a practical suit.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to not have any creasing. I just watched
I have. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just watched a film last night. Rewatched a film called Ex Machina from 2014.
Love that.
It's very good, and the girl playing the AI robot, I'm gonna assume she had like bright green bits on her arms and legs and torso, but the points at which her body actually bends, which is like her hips and her shoulders, have this like rubber hex pattern thing happening, and it I think those are practical, but the parts where you can see through her are obviously green screen, and I think that's how they did the suit. I haven't looked at behind the scenes for that show very much, or that movie very much, but what's interesting is they actually did kind of achieve the most of the time the non-crease thing for her, for the rubber bits, which is amazing to see because that's really hard to do. I can only assume it was really uncomfortable to wear, and that rubber is really thick, because the only way to avoid that is to not have a really thin fabric. You make a super thick, non-pliable thing, so that when your leg does bend, all it can do is it doesn't crease. It just like it just bends, and so because it's super non-pliable. But I imagine that's quite uncomfortable to wear, and so to make a practical Spartan suit must be quite difficult. I'll be curious to look really closely and overanalyze like the way that they did it, and I assume it's going to look good. But even in like one of the teaser trailers they dropped for the TV show, Master Chief like lands on his knee into a superhero pose, and you can see his armor bits jiggle, and it just looks weird. It just looks kind of goofy.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
You know what? Yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I completely agree with you. Like, if you go for the video game Halo Spartan look, like you want it to be CGI because it's not just possible. It's not possible. It's possible with our materials today. But I brought up the teaser trailer. They dropped the teaser for the trailer. They dropped yesterday, and you kind of see like a shot for like maybe 2-3 seconds when they just walk with their suits.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, like if we look at it like not as Halo fans, I really like it because I think they just realized like, oh, we can't make the undersuits, like it's not gonna work. So it looks so much more like something we'd see in the military today. Like it's like the undersuit is actually made of like it's obviously made of some kind of texture, like a stretchable texture underneath. But then there's like different layers of like Kevlar armor, I guess.
Right.
Stuff that's like moving around as he's moving. And
I just dropped
kind of works.
I just dropped the full trailer. It just came out. So let's all watch it right now, and then we can actually have something to talk about.
Oh, okay.
I just dropped it in the chat.
All right.
Let's all watch that, and then we can actually have something substantial to talk about.
Should we synchronize when we press play?
Yeah, let's try to do that. I'll say 3, 2, 1, and I'll say 3, 2, 1, play, and hit play when I say play. Okay.
Oh, wait. No. It's not the actual trailer.
What is this?
I'm just looking like quickly. It's different teaser trailers all in one.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all the 3 different teaser trailers we're seeing. Like one from E3, I think, one from like 2 months ago, maybe 1 month ago, and the one from yesterday.
Fishing for views.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just that, unfortunately.
Son of a bitch.
And is it? Them 3.
I don't know when it's coming out. Do you guys know when the?
Well, it looks like Jack, like Fletcher, just dropped a video an hour ago, saying that there's a release date now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which was supposed to come out when the trailer came out.
That's weird. Maybe it did come out, but it's not this one.
There's a bunch of set photos too that I don't know how you got those.
Oh, really?
Jack, say the release date.
It says Bengals versus Chiefs at 3 p.m. Eastern.
When's that?
Later today sometime.
During halftime of that game. At least 4 hours from now.
Okay. We won't get it during this recording of the podcast, unfortunately. That's sad.
Oh, well.
Sad timing. But what's the release date though?
Just even say it.
Say it. He
Oh,
says we finally have a release date in the video, but he doesn't say
come
what
on.
it is. Jack,
He wants all the money.
brother.
But wait, it's 24th of March.
Okay.
I just saw, like, I just turned on the captions. 57, 50, 55.
Great.
Wait, I'm told, to be fair, they give their release date is the
Yep, he said it.
24th of March.
Yep, 24th of March. So that's interesting.
Wait, really? I thought it was like
That's soon.
later this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
24th of March is in,
Holy.
well, it's about 3 months. Or
Holy
about
crap.
2 months from now, actually.
Yeah, Jesus. That's interesting.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Okay, so should we continue the
We
the
should.
podcast?
We should definitely
Yeah.
do that. Now that there's false alarm, I'm sorry that
Yeah.
I am.
Were
baited
we
by
talking about
internet so easily.
the undersuits? Was that the thing we talked about?
We were talking about undersuits and how they should. I think the undersuits should be CGI'd.
Yeah. And
To look
yeah,
the best
exactly.
they can.
Yeah,
but I really think the
what-
whole suit should be CGI'd.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
I
that's
did
fair.
notice about most translations of Mjolnir armor is that the proportions are always a little bit wrong for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Especially on like the Gen 1s or even the Gen 3s. Because if I'm remembering correctly, the Spartan 3 Gen 1s and the Spartan 2 or the Spartan 4 Gen 2s were designed around practical human proportions. So when you try to fit that stoic Spartan, like super wide shoulders, long arms,
Yeah.
onto a normal person, it just doesn't translate right.
Yeah.
You also saw
Well-
that in Forward Unto Dawn, where the proportions are just a little bit wrong for
It's
Master Chief.
goofy.
Yeah.
The front
Yeah.
on the suit is goofy.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think it always looks weird because the human body, even if you design the suit around human proportions, which I think Infinite Chiefs is supposed to be pretty accurate to a real person.
As far as I know, he's supposed to be like
The bend
designed
points,
sort of after Kratos, a little bit,
right?
Like his physique.
Exactly. And it should look, in a game, it should look the best it can that way. But as soon as, like, for instance, the chest plate for Chief in Infinite, you could not, the way that your bicep armor piece would hit that, you couldn't shoulder a rifle, which is a really important thing for Chief to have to be able to do.
Yeah.
That's like pretty important. That's a pose he's going to be in a lot of the time, and also, where does the actual buttstock of the rifle land? Nowhere. You're supposed to put it right here in this crook here in your shoulder, but there is no crook on a Spartan armor. The buttstock would be out here. You'd have to basically center it on your chest and out forward by like 4 inches. Yeah, it's really awkward. So I'm seeing screenshots from the set right now of Chief walking around, and the armor, the proportions of it are really weird looking. Like,
Yeah, I just sent a screenshot from the teaser to the trailer.
That exactly that
and-
shot.
Yeah, and honestly, maybe I'm controversial here. I fully agree with all you guys are saying, but if I don't look at it like in the traditional Halo way, I honestly love how it looks. Like, it doesn't look traditional Spartan, but I'm kind of okay with it. I think it looks badass. Like, it doesn't look awkward in my opinion.
His head looks so
but-
big though.
Yeah, the only problem I have is the head is kind of high up. Like, I don't know.
Well,
His head should be
what
a
they've
lot,
done here
like,
that
further
makes it
down.
all look quite different is the chest plate is different. Everything else looks
Yeah.
pretty normal, but the chest plate, like I was just talking about, is smaller.
Yeah. And the undersuit, like, you can see like different straps and stuff. Like, by
You're right.
the-
I see that.
Yeah, and
keeping
that's the
armor
stuff I
pieces
kind
up.
of like, even though it's not Halo at all.
Mhm.
I think it looks cool, like, in a practical sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a certain charm to it. The fact that they've built it up to, it's not trying to look exactly like the games. It is trying to look practical on its own merits. It's just it is different, and the differences are very
Yeah, it is.
notable.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah, exactly.
what they've done there to make the chest plate they've just shrunken the chest plate basically, because you kind of have to. If you hadn't done that, the posability there wouldn't be any posability, And I
Yeah.
imagine that hip piece is probably not even a solid piece of armor. It's probably soft, because imagine
Yeah.
getting down to a crouched position and the thigh armor clashing with the hip armor,
Yeah.
you'd probably have horrible problems with that. Plus, it would probably pinch the shit out of you in an area that would really hurt to get pinched.
Yeah, and as well as that, like we got to think about like Spartans in Halo. They're pretty much just like upsized normal human beings, while like like tall people in real life, they're more than like they're often just like tall. They're not when they get taller, they don't automatically get like wider.
Yeah.
So that's why often when we see like really tall people cosplay as Chief, they look kind of thin because tall people don't grow like
they don't just scale up. They mostly just stretch upwards.
Yeah, so that kind of makes sense. So yeah, you got to look at it in a different lens, and if you do, I think there's much to appreciate. But yeah, it does look like weird when you're used to
very
what
interesting.
Halo looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it is fascinating to watch. There's a reason why a lot of people will do like ODST fan films rather than Spartan fan films, because getting Spartans to look like Spartans is pretty difficult. So I mean, I commend them for how far they've been able to take it. Honestly, they look way better than I would have expected.
Yeah, same here. Yeah,
it's interesting. I'm gonna be. We'll see how it is.
Have you heard any of the music besides the obvious
trailer
music?
Music, yes. Oh. That's what I want to talk about this.
I haven't even thought about that.
What the fuck is the musical direction gonna be? Is it gonna be like not even trying to be Halo, or is it gonna try to be like Combat Evolved soundtrack on a TV show? Because I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, I do not think it's gonna. I don't expect it to sound anything like Halo. Anything.
No. The only thing that tells you it's Halo, like when we've seen the Halo title of the teaser trailers, I think we hear the chant.
Yeah.
I think. But that's kind of like they don't even have to include that. So I don't know. But that's the only thing we've heard.
I wonder if we'll even hear the chant in the show, because it's definitely been in the trailers, and it's a new recording.
I mean, I honestly don't want them to use it that much. I just want them to use it like maybe when we see Halo or when we see something Forerunner, because that's more fantastical to me.
I do really hope they finally do something like leitmotivic with the music, and they use the Halo theme as a leitmotif for the Halo ring, and they use other things for characters and stuff. I fear they have not talked about who the composer. They haven't talked about a lot of the credits, but I am so interested in what this musical direction is. Because it could be so many things. Again, one of the main things that I think is highly possible is that it's going to be super generic sci-fi action TV show music.
Yeah.
Which is
I think that would completely turn me off from watching it.
Yeah. I mean,
the music will make or break it.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's core to what Halo is.
Mm-hmm. Half of what Halo is its music. What are you going to say, Vern?
No, I was just going to say, when we see the trailer in a few hours, I just don't think we should... I don't think we should just it's generic music, I give up on the show. I think most trailers nowadays, they just use generic music because trailers are meant to be generic.
We won't know until the show's out, because the trailers...
Yeah, so I think we should just wait until the show is out to see what the music sounds like. But yeah, I hope they use
even the Halo games use generic trailer music,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I definitely don't expect the trailer to tell us very much.
But in the actual show, that's what I'm most concerned about.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
Definitely.
What do you guys think it could be?
I think it's an immediate thought that I just had, but something like what we've been hearing in Halo Infinite, it's a mix of very, I guess, marketable music, but that still has its own identity.
Yeah.
One thing that does come to mind.
It could be. However, when I think about, it's like if I imagine the Halo Infinite soundtrack and I just kind of paste it over the top of a TV show, it feels pretty weird. Because even Halo Infinite has a very game-like quality to its music. If you know what I mean? I feel like there's a distinction I could be wrong about this, but I think there's a distinction between music that sounds good in a game and music that sounds good to watch on television. Just because in a game, it's drawing you into the atmosphere of it, and it has maybe more time to. It's less connected to the beat by beat, moment to moment events on screen.
Well, there are composers like Bear McCreary, who did Walking Dead, and who also recently did Call of Duty Vanguard, which that actually has an excellent soundtrack. Seriously.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
that's what I hear. I've got to listen to it.
So they probably could bring somebody that's done both.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that one of the composers for Halo Infinite did do film or television before.
Which one?
Gareth? Don't remember.
Gareth?
Maybe.
Possibly Gareth. I don't know him for any film work.
Oh yeah, he did the Ori soundtrack, right?
It's true.
Yeah, he did Ori.
Yeah.
Gareth is a powerhouse. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
His tracks are amazing. I think all of them have scored for film before, but whether or not they have a highly film-oriented background or not is the question.
Yeah.
Looks like Joel is mostly games. Curtis definitely has a couple of films on his belt, but they're like smaller indie films, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I think a Bracken Escape, which I covered recently, would work well on top of like an action sequence or something.
You're right about that. Bracken Escape would make a pretty decent like film score moment.
Like there's a lot of parts of that song. It's like a 2-something minute song, but there's like a lot of parts of it that you can like take stuff out of and loop and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or like slow down or speed up or whatever based on whatever's going on.
Curtis scored a TV series in 2009.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh, he's been around for a while then.
Yeah, I think he was probably quite young at the time. Because he's not very old now.
Do you guys like want to see songs directly from the games, or do you guys want to see something that's just inspired by it? Like, what do you guys feel about that?
References and inspirations, but never anything directly from the games.
Yeah,
is what I want.
Yeah. I think themes can be brought forward. I just don't think you can actually bring forward actual track structure, because you have to score the show. You can't just lay over music that you you can't just write a bunch of music and just paste it over the top of a TV show. You have to watch each scene and beat for beat score it.
Because for one, O'Donnell Salvatore wouldn't be so happy about that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's okay. So this is another part of the conversation. It's interesting that Neo's not here for this. On the legal level, how much can the show play with? And in terms of wanting to have longevity for the show and having it not get taken down, like, do you think they just decided, you know what? We know things are kind of sketchy with the whole legal aspect of Halo music right now. Let's just not even touch it. And so we won't hear any familiar themes.
There is stuff you can do that can like reference the original material, like staying within certain keys or playing songs at a certain BPM.
You can.
Or you could do just the classic triplets on 125 BPM, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can. You can evoke Halo music without quoting it. You can do that because it has that strong of a musical personality. Yeah. I think that's more the direction they'll go, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to sound very familiar. I think it'll be your classic Paramount sci-fi action TV show score. I think.
Yeah.
With the Halo theme every once in a while.
Yeah. I just hope they use like, for like all the Unity scenes, I hope they use the Halo 3 Unity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
snare
think of
drum
any
and
right now. Yeah, exactly. Like the drums and the brass, that kind of stuff. I just want that, like the instruments.
Very cheesy, like military type stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like a military brass band performing the music to it. Yeah, well, I've talked about that in my videos before, like the musical personalities of and this is something that Halo Infinite plays off of very strongly with Halo. And when I first. The first content that I did on my channel being the Discover Hope breakdowns, Curtis's score for Discover Hope was really strong, evoking those things. So anything that was like he was scoring that, that was scored like a television show or a film would be scored, not the way a game gets scored a lot, because it was an actual beat for beat, predictable, curated narrative moment. And so he uses snare drum in certain ways in certain areas that have to do with the UNSC, the pilot and stuff, versus other moments where, when the Halo ring is revealed, there's no snare drum there. It's just choir, because that's the sound of that. And, that is a good example of what we might maybe see, is things like that, where they're, like you said, they're evoking sounds and, and gestures that are Halo-like, but not quoting.
I think now two of the best examples I can think of from Infinite are the song Escherum and the song Reverie, which both have a lot of new ideas. They sound very much like they belong in the Halo universe, but they don't reuse anything from previous games, yet they still fit in so well. Clearly, they could bring in some very familiar sounding music without having to reference previous material, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the Infinite soundtrack is really interesting because there's really clear stratification between the three composers in terms of musical direction on the part of Joel Yarger, the musical director. It's very obvious that they looked at Gareth and they said, okay, you will be working on the Banished and Endless themes, the things that are new to the first-person Halos, but need to feel like they fit in with Halo, but they need to be new. And so Gareth's things are really strong, but they're like pretty different from anything we've ever heard before. They're some of my favorite tracks for that reason. Joel, they looked at and they said, you have a very strong grasp on synthesizers, and you also, Joel worked on Through the Trees, then he worked on Undercover, which is the Undercover of Night adaptation, and he did a lot of the legacy themes, but basically new arrangements. In my opinion, Joel sounds like the most likely to be a jazz musician of the three of them, and he probably does play jazz. I'm gonna assume, just because of the spirit that his tracks carry forward. But Curtis worked out a language, a set of harmonic rules, and I'd love to actually go really deep on this for the sake of some of my videos. But like he clearly worked out some language for crafting those beautiful choral moments that are, none of it is like quoting themes or motifs. It's all new music, but it sounds Halo anyway.
It still sounds like home.
It sounds like he worked out a rule set and a musical language to work with that he can just create those gluey tracks. And the three of them together make what we have in the Infinite soundtrack. But I think what Curtis was doing is in my opinion the most apt to be adapted into new mediums, without having the legal ties, basically. Because of its nature, of the nature of it being, it's more generalized in terms of being a musical rule set rather than being. Yeah, I just think that is, if I were directing the TV show, I would have probably literally hired Curtis Schweitzer to do it.
Yeah. I mean, he really does like the. He's probably made like the best emotional Halo music ever, I think.
Yeah, they have him doing a lot of the deep character moments in Infinite.
Yeah, exactly. Like my favorite moment is probably actually in Reverie, the piano part, like at the end somewhere, I think. I don't know. I just think it's beautiful. Like he just uses so little to say so much.
Yeah, that as a composer, and Alyx knows all about this, when you're writing, the end product is a complete, stripped down version of what you started with. Usually you've written and it's busy and it's all this stuff, and it's a process of taking things out and simplifying and it's almost never like getting more and more and more complex, because normally when, at least for me, when that happens, it gets worse and worse and worse.
Right.
Generally sometimes it's it's really fluid, but in reality, but still.
I'm sort of starting to talk about myself, but there is a song that I put out recently that is a leftover melody from like over a year ago that I just couldn't figure out what to do with. There's a reference to a walk in the woods that I did a few months ago. Not a few months ago, close to a year ago, that I released for a Halo fan project called Halo Legacies. which is being
I remember.
developed by the former SPV3 developers. So that one is in F sharp. It's got that old melody, you know. The Walk in the Woods melody.
God, it's beautiful.
It's in F sharp. And there's another melody that I wanted to bring in, but I couldn't find a place for, so that ended up becoming its own song. So it's
That's so Halo. I love
God,
it.
it's so good.
And now I have these two separate ideas that spawned from the same place, which is sort of, I guess, developing my own algorithm for creating a
It's
specific
like what I was
sort of
talking about
sound.
with Curtis. It sounds like he
Exactly.
worked out a musical language and rule set that he can then
You have to
be
play
creative
around.
within.
Yeah, you start with something and then you create a bunch of ideas from that one thing. They might not always go with each other, but they could branch out into their own separate entities.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have basically a limitless supply of music. That sounds like it's all coming from the same idea.
Yeah, you can go on forever as long as you've sat within, as long as you're sitting within that purview. You can go on forever, making new things, and it'll always sound right. And that's very hard to find. It's like no small task to make something that way. It's really impressive. And your music sounds very good, Alyx.
Thank you.
It does. Real quick before we continue, I kind of have to leave. Pretty soon.
I was actually gonna wrap it up. So
okay,
we can do that.
Good. Yeah. Cue the outro.
Until next week, thank you all for joining us today. Not a Halo podcast is created in association with Pseudofusion Productions, LLC, free of any funding. If you would like to support us, please share with your friends, and do support the members of the show, Alyx, Neo, and Wernissage, on their respective platforms, listed in the description. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thanks for the discussion. That was amazing.
It was.
We'll see what happens with the TV show, and we'll definitely go deeper on it when we know more, which is going to probably be many months from now.
Yes.
But I'm Noah, and this is Not a Halo podcast.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm not doing that.
That's fair. I'll probably cut that anyway. I'm not doing that. Respectable.
Do it.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.